Hi, my name's Nicky Saunders, and I am the founder and creator of the Empowered Parenting Programme, breaking family cycles and building bonds. Today, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about family cycles, what they are, also why people tend to avoid acknowledging or exploring their family cycles, why we should all be looking at our family cycles and patterns, and how we can do that. So, what are family cycles? Well, family cycles are patterns that have come down the generations from our great grandparents to grandparents to parents to us. And they are steeped in not only the era, but also the values, the morals, the beliefs, the behaviors of those previous generations. So, where do we get those values, morals, beliefs, behaviors from? Well, essentially, when we have a baby, it's a bit like a computer, really. As parents, we upload our data onto our child. So we upload our values, our morals, our beliefs, our behaviors onto our children, how we manage our emotions. We upload all of these things onto our children. Therefore, our parents have uploaded their data onto us, and their parents uploaded their data onto them. And we can see how that can bounce down the generations. So, for example, your parents may have felt it was really important for you to have good table manners. And as a result, you're exactly the same with your children. You expect them to have good table manners. Now, that's not to say that that's not a really good learning and that's something that's really important to some people. But to other families, that very thing is not important. And this is why, as families, we're all very different. We have different family rules, we have different intergenerational patterns that follow down the generations. So, when we're talking about something more fundamental like emotional development and how we manage our emotions, historically, emotions haven't been important as far as children are concerned. So, considering their emotions, how they feel, has not been a factor. And this was largely because in previous generations, the main focus for parents was keeping their children alive. The mortality rate for children under the age of the 5 was really high. And it wasn't really until the 1950s that actually children under the age of 5, the level of mortality started to drop significantly. But we're now in a mental health crisis, and there's a reason for that. We now know that the emotional development of children up to 18 months is really important around their neurological processing, but also nurturing our children and their emotional well-being going forward is really, really important to help them to develop their healthy decision making and develop a solid mental health for the future. This is why it's really important for us to really explore our family patterns, because this whole new realm of parenting has become fundamental in our children's future development. So, whereas emotions were not really a factor for children or for parents historically, now they're more important than ever. So, we have to explore things such as how we were spoken to as children, how people maybe described us. Many people are described as shy, for example. And actually, that's just a label. A child isn't born shy, but that will be largely environmental. There will be some genetic elements in there. 30% of our personalities are genetic, but 70% is environmental. So if we're told that we're shy for long enough, we are shy. And we have to be thinking about how we describe our children, how we behave towards our children, and the type of language that we're using and the things that we're modeling to our children as well. Historically, we know discipline was a huge factor. There was things such as smacking and shouting, and even not that many years ago, the naughty step. There may be things that you're doing today with your children that you walk away and think, oh, why did I shout? Why did I do that? Why did I say that? All of these things will be steeped in your subconscious. And if you just give it some thought, largely what you'll probably find is that you are copying your parents in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not suggesting that historically our parents were terrible people. Most parents parent with the best intention with the information that they have. But if you are finding yourself going, I don't want to be that person, then exploring your intergenerational patterns are really important. And that starts with you and starting to think about, how was I parented? What was it that I liked about what my parents did with me and what was it that I didn't like. Once we start to do that, we can change the shape of the parent that we are today, and we can change the outcome for our children as well. Parenting, I found as a parent myself, it's riddled with anxiety and often guilt because we want to be doing it so much better. Every generation wants to be a better parent than the way in which they were raised. But unless we actually really do a deep dive and explore those things, we can't change them. Now, that can be a little bit confronting at times. And I'm going to talk to you about the 5 reasons why people avoid looking at their intergenerational patterns and the way in which they were parented. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge epigenetics and intergenerational trauma. Now, historically, we didn't know that intergenerational trauma was even a thing. And what we're finding now through science is that if our ancestors have experienced some form of trauma, and we have to remember that our ancestors were going through world wars and famines, and the health service was pretty poor at the time. It's no great surprise that they did experience fundamental trauma. And now we're finding that actually that can be passed down the generations. That's not to say that we cannot heal some of that generational trauma, because we can. As long as we start to look at our intergenerational patterns and see the hangover that we've had from that trauma, then we have the capacity to be able to change that. So I'll put that into some sort of context. For example, our mother may be a particularly anxious person. And by default, part of our genetic makeup is that we might have actually developed that degree of anxiety, whereas our sibling might not have done. But that may just be because of the genetic link. That does not mean to say that we can't resolve some of that anxiety. Now, we may not know why our mother experienced anxiety. It may be because of her mother's experiences in life. And it's really important for us to learn how to manage our emotions so that we don't pass those traumas on to our children. And even if we've had children at this point, our modeling and our environment, if you remember what I said earlier, 70% of how our children evolve is as a result of their environment. So if we are strong and we are confident and we have a high self-esteem, our children are going to copy that. They're going to model that. But if we're anxious and we're shy and we're fearful of everything in the world, our children are more likely to copy that as well. When you think about breaking family cycles, which one of these best describes you? So you may welcome the idea, but hopefully until today, you had no real idea what family cycles even are. Many people can identify that they don't want to be the parents that their parents were, or that their children just need something a little bit different now, but find themselves repeating things that their parents did. This can be really, really disempowering for some. Yet because our parenting values, beliefs and behaviours have all been uploaded by our parents, and most of them live in our subconscious, it can be really challenging to access them. Therefore, they find themselves repeating the cycle, and this is not our fault, as we often don't know what we don't know. But that with some gentle exploration and awareness raising, we can all access those beliefs and attitudes. And as a result, we can shift and change them if we want to. So you may believe that you are parenting very differently and have broken those family cycles. Some people can really identify that they don't want to be the parents that their parents were, and they often can see key areas that they want to change. So, for example, they may have been smacked. So they never smack their child. However, they may shout at their child or restrict their child in another way. And usually this isn't physically, but maybe emotionally or psychologically. Or another response to this may be that there are a few boundaries and it feels like the child has more overall control over the family dynamics. This too can be problematic because in order to feel safe, children need boundaries and structure, but provided in a way that isn't controlling. So although both of these people have removed the behaviour that they didn't like, this can often be replaced by an alternative behaviour, which may equally be not as productive as they would have liked. Another example of this may be that as a child, they may not have been allowed to eat sweets. So with their child, they implement few restrictions so that their child doesn't feel the way they felt. It's really important to acknowledge that these changes often have come with the best intention of providing their child with a brighter future. So, you may be somebody that struggles with questioning your parents' actions in childhood, even if you can identify you were unhappy. As parents, our spoken word and behaviour create a blueprint for how our child sees themselves in childhood and adulthood. So, for example, if a child is consistently told that they are naughty, troubled, or bad in any way, often the adult child will empathise with their parent and describe themselves in the same way. Therefore, they see no fault in how they were parented, as this was deserved. No child is born bad, naughty, or troubled. Any parent who describes their child in any way that is detrimental is simply a projection of the challenges that they're facing. Parenting can be tough, and although there's no excuse for squashing a child's self esteem, it's really important to recognize that when human beings feel out of control, they may try and take control of a situation, and parents are no different. Sadly, this can have a detrimental effect on the child's emotional development, but this is often not with the intent of harming their child. It's simply a lack of awareness of the consequences of their words and behaviour. So you may be somebody who thinks, I had a happy childhood. I don't need to explore my generational patterns. And if somebody has seemingly had a happy childhood, they're very unlikely to identify that they need to explore the concept of breaking family cycles, as the narrative will be, well, I'm fine. So if I repeat the same sort of parenting, my children will be fine. And in some cases, this may be true. But as parents, we still need to evaluate whether that form of parenting is fit for today's generation. An example of this may be that they felt safe and wrapped in cotton wool. Every child needs to feel safe. However, our role as parents is to prepare our children for this big wide world. So finding a balance between preparing them and keeping them safe is essential. An example of where wrapping them in cotton wool may be detrimental is that many people describe themselves as shy. Often, they may also have a shy parent, and as a result, the parent may have spoken for the child or gone out of their way to ensure that they didn't feel uncomfortable in any way. Maybe because the parent can identify the challenges that their child may be facing and how they feel. If this is the case, then often by adulthood, they may not be equipped to navigate relationships or feel that they have a voice because they wait for others to speak for them and often go with the flow. This can play a part in developing a person's self esteem and confidence. And if we don't feel our voice is important or valid, then we can often become a passenger in our own lives rather than the driver. Again, this can often come from a loving place. However, in this ever changing world, our children need us to really explore those patterns so that we can equip them for the future. So you may be somebody who has a deep loyalty and bond with your parent. Regardless of whether somebody has had a good, bad, or indifferent childhood, adult children can often feel very wedded to their parents and wouldn't question them internally or externally in any way. Statements such as "you must respect your elders" played a huge part in parenting historically, and regardless of how an elder has behaved towards a child, they're right. And this messaging can be really problematic, as there can be a huge internal conflict and can prevent people from developing themselves personally and emotionally due to not wanting to seemingly be disloyal to the people that they love and admire. This can prevent them from providing themselves with the opportunity to live their best life because they find themselves locked into patterns which may not be serving them. At this point, I really want to say that remember, as human beings, we are all fallible and we all get things wrong, and our parents too will have made mistakes. Identifying the challenges they may have faced is not being disloyal, and it doesn't mean you cannot love them. It simply states that they are human, and as humans, we have the capacity to accept that we may not like what somebody has done, but we will always love them. This is a great message to remember as a parent because our children will not always please us with their behaviour, but it's rarely in question that we love them. Being a parent is a fine balance, and it's sometimes really tough to walk that really tight line. What we've got to remember is parenting historically has been very much about parents having control over children. And what we're seeing now is actually that is not going to work and it doesn't work. So collaborating with our children Setting the right intentions from the get go of being a parent is really important. But the message I just want to give you here is that you can change how you parent your child at any given moment, and your child will respond in a positive way. So, why should we all explore our family cycles? Well, we've learned and are still learning so much about childhood emotional development. And the reality is that most parents want the absolute best for their children. Yet, as a result of our family cycles, we often find that we're not the parent that we dreamed of being. I, for one, was adamant that I wouldn't shout at my children, yet I found myself shouting. As a person in my mid 20s, I couldn't understand why a parent was letting their child throw a complete tantrum in the supermarket, because, of course, my children were not going to do that. We form such judgments before we become parents based on our experiences and what we thought we knew. But the question is, at that time of my life, why did I have these hard and fast rules in my mind about what my children were going to do or not do? Well, fundamentally, it was because I wanted to be a good parent. And somehow, in my young and inexperienced mind, and at a time when there was very little information out there about children's emotional development, I made it about me. I didn't want my children to feel I was a bad mum, nor did I want people witnessing how I was raising my children and seeing me as a bad parent. So essentially, I made it all about me. When we embark on becoming parents, we need to appreciate that this is likely the most complex and challenging role of our lives, and not to take this journey lightly. I think it's fair to say that nobody can really understand what being a parent is like until they're in the thick of it. Historically, being a parent has often been all about who's in control, and this is where the battles ensue and how relationships wither as a result. We see this battle for control mainly in toddler and teenage years, but everything in between as well. Sure. So, I want to give you a few tips to be thinking about to start that journey of being the parent that you want to be. So, firstly, until your child is independent and able to take care of themselves, your life will largely be about them. But in the meantime, do take care of yourself. Make sure that you look after your own well being as well. Remember that your emotions are yours and their emotions are theirs. Try not to get caught up in their little dysregulated worlds. Help them to navigate them by regulating your emotions. Explore your family cycles in depth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This will only take you on an incredible journey of empowerment. I'm not saying it will be easy, but it will enable you to be the parent that you want to be and not the parent that has been gifted to you. Remember that you will make mistakes, but with awareness, you have the capacity to learn from such mistakes. Learn the art of saying sorry. Apologizing to our children provides incredible opportunities for your child to learn that getting things wrong is a way of life, but apologizing and learning from that mishap is the way forward. Remember, your child is a little human who doesn't want to feel controlled. This is not the army. We are here to provide boundaries and stability for our children and help them to explore opportunities, some of which will go well and some not so well. But with the knowledge that they have a soft place to land if something goes wrong is absolutely essential. Teaching rather than telling. The greatest gift you can offer your children is modeling. In everything you do, your child is watching and listening, and as a result, is copying. Bearing this in mind will likely support you in ensuring that you are the best version of yourself most of the time, and that teaching them is far better than telling them. If you tell a child not to shout, yet you shout, this is simply confusing for them, and they're likely to copy you rather than listen to your command. Your child does not want full control over their lives, yet they do want age appropriate control. So let them have it. Sometimes this can mean things can take a little bit longer, but by giving them time, you are empowering them and enabling them to learn. Imagine how you want your child to describe their childhood and how they were parented in 20 or 30 years' time. Ask yourself, how are you harvesting that? And if you're not sure, then reach out for some help. Finally, remember that you are not alone. You won't get it right 100% of the time, but never feel that there's nobody out there to support you. If you're watching this, then in my view, you're already a great parent because it matters to you and you care. Being a parent is the most rewarding role you will ever have. Harvest the relationship and treat it with the respect, care, and compassion that you may have wanted or maybe had with your parents, and parent them your way. that supports them for today's world. When your children are older, you will reap the rewards of their successes when you see them thriving and living their lives their way. And you will know that you played the part you wanted to play in getting them to their destination. I wish you all the very best for your parenting journey. And if ever you want to do a deeper dive into your family cycles, don't hesitate to schedule a free 30-minute call with me, and we can explore whether or not the Empowered Parenting Program is for you. Bye for now.